I was a good salesman. I had actually won the monthly Best Salesman award on no less than 10 occasions in 5 years. I worked in the menswear department at Doyle's, a big department store in the middle of town. It was Doyle's proud boast that they would never be beaten on price and quality, and they rarely were. Anyway, that's enough of the sales pitch. I was sorting out some socks. They always seemed to need sorting, when the department manager, Mr. Avery, walked over to me and said, "Mr. Sims, we are quiet here at the moment and Miss Fissler of the ladies' department has 3 girls off sick. Can you please help them out for the rest of the week?" I of course had no choice but to agree to going, and it was with a certain amount of misgiving that I went over and presented myself to the formidable head of the ladies' department. "Ah, there you are, Mr. Sims," said Miss Fissler. "Thank you for joining us at such short notice. Please go over to the skirts and blouses section. I'm afraid that you will be on your own, but a person of your experience will have little trouble selling our lines." I went over to the small desk in the midst of hundreds of skirts and blouses of all different colors, styles, and prices. I had just managed to get my bearings when a lady of uncertain age came over with a bright pink blouse and pale pink skirt. "I would like to try these on, please." I showed her the changing room and waited outside while she tried the items on. After what seemed an age, she came out. "What do you think?" she asked. I thought that she looked ridiculous. The colors clashed and she was far too old-looking for the extremely short skirt. "Well, madam, to be honest, I think that you need something a little more discreet to show off your classic beauty. If you don't mind my asking, are you buying for a special occasion? As you can see, to be salesperson you need a certain amount of tact and diplomacy." "Yes, I have a business meeting and I want to look just right." I went over to a rail and picked out a classic white silk blouse and then a calf-length full black skirt which would hide her ample hips. "Would you like to try these on? I'm sure that this will give you just the right effect for your meeting." She looked doubtful. "Trust me," I said, "these will make you look and feel great." Still looking uncertain, the lady went to change and came out a few minutes later, smiling and happy. "You're right, I look wonderful, I'll take them both." I was very happy that my first few minutes in the ladies' department was so successful, and throughout that day I managed to sell many items clothing to all types of ladies. Those with and without dress sense. I must admit that I was enjoying myself. The ladies' department had a reputation for having the best selection of clothes in town, and judging by the number of customers I served, it was very popular with women of all ages. At 4:30, Miss Fissler came over looking rather flustered and said, "I've been badly let down. Miss Moore and Mrs. Peacock were supposed to come in this evening to do the stocktake, but both of them have caught that nasty bug that's been doing the rounds. I have to do the stocktake tonight, otherwise there will be trouble." "Are you doing anything tonight?" "Not really, I have nothing planned. To be frank, I never had anything planned." "You have done a stocktake on your department, haven't you?" "Yes, many times." "Will you mind doing it for this section whilst I do the others with Miss Frost?" "Of course not, thank you, Mr. Sims." It must have been about 5:45 p.m., just a quarter of an hour before the store was due to close. It was quiet, as no customers were in my section at the time. I was putting back some skirts that had been left in the changing room onto the rails. I heard a cough behind me, and as I turned round, a lady with a slight hoarse voice said, "Can I try on the skirt?" She was a fairly tall, with wide shoulders and a slightly thick neck. "Certainly, madam," I said, showing her the way to the changing room. She was gone a few moments and then came out with the skirt on. "What do you think?" she said. The skirt suited her and made her look a bit slimmer. She looked very nice in it. "It looks lovely, madam," I said truthfully. She had one more look in the full-length mirror and said, "I'll take it." She changed back into her other clothes and then handed me the skirt to put in a bag. "How would Madam like to pay?" She handed over a credit card, which I swiped through the till. I then got her to sign the slip and then I checked the name and signature. I was just about to hand the receipt and card back to her when I noticed that the name on the card said George Phillips. "I'm sorry, madam, I can't accept your card, as it is in the name of George Phillips." "Is it your husband's card?" She laughed rather deeply and said, "No, silly, I'm George Phillips." My mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. As an award-winning salesman, I should have been able to pass a witty remark, glossed over it and carried on, but I just didn't know what to say. "Don't look so surprised," she said. He said. I didn't know what I was meant to call the person in front of me. What I do know is that I was more embarrassed than I had ever been before in my life. "Look," said George, "I'm a crossdresser, a lot of us come here to buy clothes, we like the selection. Come to think of it, I've never seen you here, are you new?" I found my voice and while George was talking, had managed to regain some of my composure. "I have been seconded from the menswear department." "Well, dear, the name I use when I'm dressed en femme is Diane. You know, you have a nice figure, you should try dressing like me, it's fun. Anyway, it's been lovely to talk to you, but I have to meet some girls at the club. Can I have my skirt now?" I handed over the skirt and mumbled my apologies and Diane, George or whoever walked out of the store. The store finally shut and as the various employees left for home, I carried on doing the stocktake. I could hear Miss Fissler sorting out her section as I worked away, trying to reconcile the list that I had with the stock on the rails and shelves. I was going rather slowly as I wasn't used to the section and I didn't know where everything was. Before I knew it, Miss Fissler came over and said, "How are you doing?" "Okay, thanks, I should be finished soon." "Well," said Miss Fissler, "I have finished my section. Do you need a hand?" "No, that's all right, I won't be long now." "Then I'll be going home. Don't forget to tell security on the ground floor when you've finished. Good night." With that, Miss Fissler went, leaving me alone on the shop floor. I continued with my lists. I kept on making mistakes and having to go back and correct them. I was still feeling a certain amount of disquiet over my encounter with George or Diane. I don't know why I was troubled. I couldn't put my finger on it. I considered myself a man of the world, not easily shocked. I wasn't upset over what had occurred, but something, I didn't know what, was bugging me. I went downstairs to the canteen and got myself a Coke from the machine. When I arrived, the duty security man was there. I vaguely recognized him but didn't know his name. "Hi there," I said, putting the money in the slot. "Hello, you're Mr. Sims, aren't you? Late night tonight?" "Yes, I'm doing the stocktake. It's taking longer than I thought." "Well, I'll keep out of your way. Just let me know when you finished, okay?" "Yes, I'll do that." I took my Coke back up to the women's department. I passed one of the mannequins dressed in a satin dress. "That looks nice," I thought as I passed. "I wonder what it's like to wear." With that, I just stopped in my tracks, not believing what I had just thought to myself. I was shocked and then reasoned that I obviously still had my encounter with that crossdresser on my mind. I went over to my section and carried on working, but for some reason I can't explain, every time I looked up my eyes strayed to the figure with a satin dress. I went over and over the same figures, getting angrier and angrier with myself. I couldn't get that damned dress out of my head. It was as if an inner voice was saying, "Diane was right, I should try dressing up." I stopped writing, sat down and took a sip of my drink. What the hell was wrong with me? I wish I had never served Diane for putting such ridiculous thoughts in my head. My hands were shaking, I was getting myself wound up like a tight spring. If I didn't do something about it, I thought I might snap. The next thing I knew, I was standing by the mannequin and was taking the dress off it. I had stopped thinking, and in no time the dress was in my hands. I looked around, there was nobody on my floor. I was sure I was safe. I took my clothes off until I was naked, and then I started to put on the dress. I stopped, thinking that if I was going to do this, it had to be done properly. I left the dress on a chair and went over to the lingerie department. I found a lacy bra which I put on, and then, not being satisfied with the look, I unwrapped a pair of stockings and, bunching them up, I put one in each cup. It took a while to get the right shape, but I eventually managed to make them look reasonably like breasts. I then put on some lacy suspenders and slipped on some silky stockings. I marveled at the feel of those stockings and how they clung to my legs. I then saw a pair of French knickers and a camisole top in a lovely satin cream color and hurriedly put them on. I find it hard to describe the feelings that I had as I put on the silky feminine lingerie over my naked body. It was almost beyond description. I now knew what it was like to wear clothes that were sexy, sensuous, and downright naughty. I then went back to the dress and slid it over my body, doing up the single tiny button at the back. It fitted like a glove. You may be wondering what my thoughts were while all this was going on. All I can say is that it seemed as if I was in a dream. That it wasn't me putting on these clothes, but someone else with me, just going along for the ride. When I had put on the dress, I looked at the now unclothed mannequin. It had a long blonde wig on it. I took the wig and placed it over my short hair. I then saw that the face had painted makeup on it. The next thought popping into my head was that I should also wear makeup to complete the illusion. I went over to the makeup section and had a look at the huge range of products on offer. There were many testers for foundations, powders, blushers, eyeshadows, lipsticks, and all the other things needed to beautify a woman's face. There was almost too much choice. I went over to the nearest counter, put on a smock to protect the dress, and started trying different things to go with the dress, the wig, and my complexion. I must have tried all sorts of things to make my face up the way I wanted. I made many mistakes that had to be wiped off and started again. Remember, I had never done this before, and it obviously showed. One problem was my beard stumble, but luckily I found a lady's shaver, and that managed to get off the sparse beard growth to reasonable satisfaction. I persevered with the makeup and finally got it right. The foundation looked okay and the blusher was in the right place. I put on the mascara without it getting in my eyes. I then used the eyeliner and was surprised at how nice my eyes looked, especially when I had completed the picture by putting on the eyeshadow. The lip gloss was a warm pink color that went well with the rest of my now feminized face. I had finished, and now was the time to go and look at the finished product, but then I stopped. I had no shoes on. I had now got to the stage where everything had to be just right, and I couldn't say that I was complete. I had no shoes on. I went to the shoe department and tried on several pairs. The choice was a bit limited in my size, but I eventually found a pair of black slingbacks with 2-inch heels that fitted comfortably. They were awkward to stand and walk on, but by the time I had staggered back to my section, they felt nice. I was now dressed from head to toe as a woman. I was wearing clothes that I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever wear. I could feel the sensual silk, lace, and satin against my skin. I looked down at my body and saw that the dress looked good on me. The weight was heavy but did not feel out of place. The hair was temporarily part of me. I then seemed to come out of my dream. I had done what I had set out to do. I felt vaguely uneasy and I didn't know why. And then I did realize what was wrong. I now knew how it was to look like a woman, and I must admit that it felt great. I walked over to the mirror and saw myself as others would see me. I stared at the face. It was a face that could have been my sister if I had one. It was a female version of me, much prettier and far more interesting than I ever was. I had led a pretty boring life up to now. I wasn't very adventurous, no personal life to speak of. Only one steady girlfriend who ditched me after only 2 months. I seemed to have lived for my work, rather than work to live for many years now, and as I saw this new version of me in the mirror I realized that I could change. I could make a life for myself. Just then I heard a cough behind me. I nearly tripped in my shoes as I turned round and saw Diane standing there smiling. "Hi honey, you look nice." I was so shocked I was speechless for a few seconds. I then found my voice. "How did you get in here?" I croaked. "Don't you recognize me? I work here." I looked hard at the face and then suddenly realized, "You're the security man." Diane laughed and said, "That's me, but I prefer looking like this to wearing a uniform." "I'm glad you took my advice about dressing. I just knew you would look good and femme." We spoke long into the night. Diane explained that she had started wearing women's clothes as a kid, sneaking into his mother's bedroom and trying on her things, whenever the coast was clear. "When I got this job," said Diane, "it was like I had gone to heaven. Here I was in the middle of the night all alone and surrounded by all the beautiful things. I couldn't resist it. Almost every night I come up here and get dressed, and every night's different. I have themes. One night I dress up as if I was going dancing, the next I might be a businesswoman just about to go to a power meeting. Sometimes I just wear a nightie and negligee. Whatever mood I'm in, I dress to suit it." "Don't you worry about getting caught?" "Like I caught you," said Diane laughing. "No, I lock and bolt the doors and the exterior alarms are on. I would know it if anyone tried to get in. As long as I call the security center once an hour, I'm left alone. If I didn't call in, that's when they would all come running. Shall we go and get some coffee?" I looked at myself and said I had better change out of these things. "Why? Well, they don't belong to me and I haven't finished work yet. Stay as you are. I think you look lovely. The night's young yet. I'll help you finish the stock take later, unless you want to change." I looked down at myself and then looked at the mirror. I did like wearing these clothes. I loved the feel and the look, and I particularly liked the change I felt being dressed as a woman, a lovely sexy woman at that, and not boring old Peter Sims. "Do you think I would get away with going out dressed like this?" I said. "Honey, if I can with my figure, I know you can," and so it was that I started my new life. During the day I was Peter Sims, and at night and over the weekends I was Samantha. Quite often I would spend my evenings in the store with Diane, trying on new clothes and new looks. At other times I went out to clubs, meeting other TVs like myself. One day I met a girl at one of the clubs. She had come with her brother, who was a TV, out for the first time. She loved her brother enough to go out with him. The club is a very TV-friendly place and welcomed TVs and SOs as well. I got talking to the girl, who was called Amanda, and we hit it off straight away. To cut a long story short, we fell in love and got married 3 months after we first met. Amanda accepted, as I did, that I was a transvestite, and that TVs and crossdressers were not sick or weird but naturally people who genuinely wants and needs to dress en femme. It is now 6 years later. I'm still happily married to Amanda. I still work at the store but am the manager of both the men's and women's department. Diane also still works there, and both Amanda and I quite often join her in the evening, along with some of our other TV friends. Some are gay, some are bi or straight. It doesn't matter, we're all people under the skin and are proud about ourselves, the way we are in our rewarding lives. My sincere hope is that one day everyone will be treated equally regardless of what or who they are. We have never been caught out, mainly because of my position and the fact that one of our TV friends just happens to be the local neighborhood policeman. We dress up and have a great time. It is on these occasions that I think back to the very first time I dressed en femme and thank Miss Fissler with all my heart for leaving me alone on that fateful night.